good evening and welcome to the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar, and hopefully it's a day when we have some really good news in a long time. I'm talking about the hope that has been evoked because of the very initial results of phase 1 and phase 2 of what is being called as the Oxford Vaccine. Now here's what it technically is. It's called the CHAdOx1 nCoV19. It's quite a mouthful, but essentially it's a trial for a COVID-19 vaccine done by Oxford University. It's been done on 1,077 people, so a little over 1,000 people. It shows that antibodies and T cells both were created in the initial tests. There were some side effects of fever and body ache which can be handled with paracetamol. So it is a very conclusive and positive news from the vaccine front that we are hearing right now. But remember, there are many in this race and there are many questions to be asked as well. I have a fantastic lineup of experts today to answer all the questions that you and I have in mind. But first, let me go across to my colleague Pankaj just to get a sense of what all the fuss is about. Pankaj, can you explain to us the story of the Oxford vaccine?
You know, when we just look at really what's happening in terms of the virus, what we can see now is that Oxford has released its latest report now. Oxford plus AstraZeneca were the forefront, or we can say the most advanced in terms of a vaccine development. So that essentially is what, they are, what is the world going with. So Moderna as well as Oxford. So Oxford data is important. Now they have released this data today. It had a trial of 1,077 people, which is a substantial size. It's not a great size, mind you, but considering that, people want to develop the vaccine pretty fast, it's a substantial size that they have taken. And that's the first phase, but it's still too early. The next phase will start pretty soon. In that, it is expected to have more than 10,000 people. Now, a drug goes into a preclinical stage, phase 1, phase 2, and then the phase 3 drug. So 10,000 is the next size. That will be another important data to release. So, it can also be expanded to 30,000 is what I was reading somewhere in UK. But as you said that, they will start delivering this from September. This is something which has already got a pre-order coming in from various countries, various cities. So it's expected to be one of the most advanced ones. The interesting thing is that Serum Institute, which is owned by Poonawalla, is the manufacturing partner for this. So definitely it gives some positive news flow because they have also been saying that, by the year end, they should have massive production of this particular vaccine. If and when it goes through, this data is encouraging. It is not showing any major issues. So when we develop a vaccine, Nantara, there are two things to watch out for. One, of course, is from the trial base, how many people are getting the success rate. And second, vaccines always tend to have a side effect. Now, considering the side effect is the most important thing because that is a too short time to consider this vaccine. Once the vaccine is given, how long will it last for? What are the side effects is something which we only come to know in a period of time. So that's why that base of 10,000 would essentially be more important. So far, good news. The drug is into second phase of its trial where it has passed out 1,077 people. They have shown encouraging data. Oxford vaccine has released this data. Now they'll start the next phase, or they would have already probably started the next phase where there are 10,000 people and they could probably expand it to further countries as well because different countries have different people in different countries have different immune system. So all of that needs to be seen, but definitely a progress which has happened, but still too early considering it's an emergency. Everything is on fast track. So let's
All right, great to have you sum that up, Pankaj. Let's go across to the experts on the show and understand a couple of things. Number one, what is different in what we're hearing from the Oxford vaccine rather than the other news that we're getting from Moderna or even the Bharat Biotech vaccine that ICMR is trying to develop? What stages are they at? Is 1,077 people enough? How much more clinical trial needs to be done to really make sure we have a safe product? By when? Is there a timeline now which is visible? Can it be at scale? Loads of questions. Speaking to me today on this is Dr. Ashish Jha, Director at Harvard Global Health Institute. Dr. Gautam Bhansali is joining me, consultant physician at Bombay Hospital and of course heading the state task force for the Maharashtra government. Dr. Giridhara Babu from Lifecourse Epidemiology, PHFI. Great to have all of you on the show. Dr. Jha, let me come to you first. And the basic question about the Oxford vaccine. Why is this different? Why is this exciting?
Thank you for having me on. It is different. It is exciting, and I'll tell you why. First and foremost, it's still early. It's an early phase 1, phase 2 trial. But what is exciting about the findings is that it generates both humoral immunity and cellular immunity. So let me explain that a little bit. The immune system has two arms to it. The humoral immunity, which is antibodies, and then cellular immunity, T cells, that get activated against a virus. And this is one of the first vaccines we've seen that seems to generate both arms of the immune system. And that's really good news. It makes me much more optimistic that when we do the phase 3 trial, that the vaccine will be effective. I do think it's important to understand at this point, still a small study, no children, no elderly people in this study, safety data only for 6 weeks. So we're not done. It's just an early glimpse that is very positive, and we need a lot more information.
Okay, it's an early glimpse which is possible, which is positive. Dr. Babu, how is it different from what we heard from, say, Moderna a few weeks ago, or what we're hearing on other fronts? You have the Wuhan University vaccine, which is also making a lot of claims. At this point, how does one distinguish, or even how do professionals like you, experts like you, distinguish between the claims of one company versus another?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and happy to be with the esteemed panel. So your question of looking at what the claims are and what do we make out of it, as scientists, we would want to look at what kind of publications out there. So the Oxford vaccine definitely has published, and Wuhan vaccine is also published in Lancet. And both of them are giving encouraging results. So the difference is with the Oxford vaccine, the first dose will provide some evidence of neutralizing antibodies at 28 days. In addition to that, the booster dose will give better response. Whereas with the Wuhan vaccine, they have shown that with a single dose, they'll be able to produce immune response. And both have shown that there are no serious adverse effects, which means that after phase 1 and 2, we have 2 vaccine candidates which can now be ready for further randomized controlled trials in different settings. I wouldn't be able to comment anything as of now until these RCTs are done in India and they're proved efficacious here, and also no major adverse events here. And once that is done, an optimistic timeline of maybe around the next 3-4 months, if that's possible in those months, I think then we'll be able to comment.
All right. So, Dr. Gautam Bhansali, you know, at scale in India, there are also a whole lot of companies that are trying to get a vaccine in place. There's Bharat Biotech, which ICMR is pushing forward. Of course, the Serum Institute of India has partnered with the Oxford trial as well. Can we be assured that when this finally hits, India will be prepared and be able to provide a vaccine at the cost required and at the scale required? Because you hear of so many countries tying up and pre-ordering millions and millions of doses. Where do we stand in that kind of preparation?
See, Tamanna, first of all, I'm thanking to you because of that this esteemed channel and esteemed experts are there. So I would like to say that today's this Lancet news is a highly encouraging news regarding that Oxford. Although everybody is aware about that Oxford is partnering with the Serum Institute of India, that Punawala, and they are in planning to produce approximately 100 million vaccine at a step. And that Serum Institute is already ready with that, and there was a partnership, as what we heard, that this is 50-50%, like 50% vaccine will go to India and 50% will go to UK. So and they have completed phase 1-2 trial. Now they will go for the phase 3 trial there, where they will do the efficacy trial, and more than thousands of people they will try. I feel personally, as far as that Oxford and Serum Institute of India is concerned, by the end of 4 or 5 weeks, they will be able to generate some amount of vaccine for that army. You can say army means that frontline warrior. As far as the Zydus Cadila and this biotech is partnering with the ICMR, and I got a letter a few days back only from the ICMR that they have already given instruction to some institute like AIMS Patna, AIMS Delhi. They already said that they want to expedite this process, and they have already also in that phase 2 trial. And their plan is that they will launch this vaccine by August 15. We doubt that August 15 it will launch or no, but they are in big trial, and in this pandemic era, it can be done. So if it's launched by August 15, like that biotech and this ICMR vaccine,
August
it's a
15.
co-vaccine.
Sorry, no, Dr. Bhansali, they clarified. They clarified that they will have the results of, the phase 1, phase 2, which they're combining on August 15th. There's no way a vaccine will come by August 15th.
Yes, result will come by the August 15th, and after that, I think it will be there for the public after that phase 3 trial, and they get the approval, because in this pandemic, they can get fast approval and fast track things, and they can expedite all the things. And third thing is that Zydus Cadila vaccine, which is also, they are in phase 1, phase 2 trial, and I feel these 2-3 companies. See, as of now, there are so many researchers are there. More than 155 vaccines are under process. Out of that, 23 vaccines are under the human trial. And the first human trial, as everybody is aware, that it was started in March. So I feel by next 2-3 months, vaccine will be available for the public or healthcare worker also.
All right. So will we have a vaccine in 2020? Dr. Gautam Bhansali says he thinks possibly yes. Let me just play out for you what the World Health Organization has said a short while ago on the Oxford vaccine.
Congratulate our colleagues at the Oxford University's Jenner Institute and the Oxford Vaccine Group, and obviously our colleagues at AstraZeneca for getting this data out there. Again, this vaccine was given to 1,000 healthy adults between the ages of 18 and 55, and certainly did not appear to have any serious adverse events other than the expected, in some cases, chills, muscle aches, headaches, and the vaccine did generate neutralizing antibody, I think, in all participants, and in a very small number of participants that were given a booster dose, those responses were even greater. So in generating T-cell mediated responses and generating neutralizing antibody, this is a positive result. But again, there is a long way to go. These are phase 1 studies. We now need to move into larger scale real world trials, but it is good to see more data and more products moving into this very important phase of vaccine discovery, and we congratulate our colleagues for the progress they have made.
All right, Dr. Ashish Jha, this September, October, end of 2020 timeline, does it seem feasible to you with the pace that we're moving on? And of course, considering that Oxford vaccine was in a sense right off the bat, it was the first out of the gate, wasn't it?
Yeah, there were a couple of very early ones, that and Moderna, both very early. In terms of timeline, first of all, I think it's very tricky to predict because there are 2 parts of the timeline that I think are going to be important. One is you want enough safety data for long enough time to assure people that if you vaccinate them, that they're not going to have a bad reaction to the to the vaccine. And that will take time. And secondly, you do need a large trial. I think phase 3 is going to be about 30,000 people. And you need to test it for long enough to show that the vaccine really protects people. We don't know that it actually prevents infections or not. My best guess is, in very optimistic terms, vaccines will start getting available to the general public sometime in 2021, not in 2020. The ability to ramp up hundreds of millions of doses, to have enough data in, to distribute it and get it into people's arms in 2020, I think is nearly impossible. I don't think any country in the world will be able to pull it off, not in any large scale, but I'm hopeful that sometime in early 21, this will be possible.
Is it also a dangerous trend, Dr. Jha? I know I asked you the question and many people are wondering this, but when we had that 15th August deadline from ICMR to publish the results, they clarified later. And even when people are hoping at the end of 2020, my question is, how do you know it's safe? And is it right to set such stringent timelines for something like a vaccine, even if it's for COVID-19, which is wreaking havoc in the world?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have enough confidence in the data to give it to your own children, to give it to your own family. And that will require large numbers of people getting the vaccine, very careful monitoring of what happens to those people, not just when they get the vaccine, but what happens when they're exposed to the virus. There's a lot of work to be done here. And so promising quick vaccines doesn't do anybody any favors because most people are not going to be able to deliver on that. And then you're going to have disappointed people. And I think more important than getting the vaccine out fast is getting it out safely so people will trust the vaccine and take it. That's why I don't generally like to give timelines, but I know everybody's pushing for 2020. And I'm just being honest, I don't see how we can have large-scale vaccinations happening in 2020. I think it is beyond unrealistic. But sometime in 2021, I am optimistic.
Dr. Babu, you agree with that? 2020 is unrealistic. We're speaking towards the middle of July, nearly the end of July, 10 days to go. It's too much to expect, even with large enough, sample size and trial size, and with a sort of red carpet for all the permissions.
So even if there is fast tracking of all the approvals, let's understand in India, to mount and then complete a phase 3 trial, it would definitely take longer time. How long depends on what kind of implementation of the trial is taking place in India, what kind of centers are getting involved. And I agree with Dr. Jha that we should be able to look at the safety profile without which we cannot accept any vaccine. However, we should also note that India is the largest manufacturer of vaccines, and the facilities that we have proved to be one of the best in the world in terms of manufacturing facilities, and also these are the ones which are approved by WHO and all the other accrediting agencies. So we have the know-how. We have done it before in terms of scaling up the operations in terms of manufacturing. We also know how to get the results done faster if the trials are done. However, there has not been a single incident of any trials in vaccines done in India in terms of whether it's rotavirus, whether it is other vaccines that either Bharat Biologicals or others have been involved in. We have not found any major problems with safety profile as such. Only then they have been used in market. So I am optimistic about the manufacturing capability of India, but before that we need to be assured of that there is an effective vaccine which is safe and available for use in India.
You know, Dr. Jha, a little bit of a controversial question in view. A lot of these, and it harks back to what I asked in the beginning of the show, a lot of these companies, pharmaceutical companies developing vaccines are listed companies, and news of positive results in trials often boosts their stock prices. It leads to a lot of commercial action. Should we then take with a pinch of salt when we hear such news? How do you distinguish which is which? Because at the end of the day, this news is one which gives hope to everyone in the world right now. How do we know which sample size is enough, or which set of results shows some real hope?
Yeah, it's a great question. The way I look at it is, look, commercial interests are going to be a natural part of this. Every company that is involved in a vaccine in the US, in the UK, elsewhere has, even when it's being developed by Oxford University, has AstraZeneca as a major pharmaceutical partner, because Oxford University can't produce the vaccine and requires capital and requires know-how. So that's going to be a natural part of this. The way I look at it is, the way I come to trust data is I want to know the researchers who are involved, and I want to make sure that they're high quality researchers. I want them to be completely transparent with their data, show people what their results are, give me the details on the side effects, let me peruse all of that. And if people are being open and transparent, then I do trust the data. And, there is going to be a very large penalty if people lie about this data. But I think there's so many people involved in these studies that I don't think active lying is happening. And as long as people are open and transparent, I will trust it, even if with or without a commercial partner.
Dr. Bhansali, here in India, how do we ensure that we expedite not only the development of a vaccine, but also provide at scale and at cost? And cost is the big question mark here. Are there preparations already on in task forces such as one which you are part of to ensure that state governments and central governments will have access to the vaccines and be able to distribute them, even free for those who need it?
Yeah, of course, Tamanna. As far as this our country, India, is concerned, we are already that our group, that our state government and municipal corporation already are in talk with the Serum Institute of India and that ICMR. And as we have distributed our testing kit or that remdesivir medications or that tocilizumab, I'm sure we will be partnering with this vaccine also, and we have that much of capability that government can buy these vaccines and they can distribute to the poor people, and that person who are affording also, they can get this kind of vaccines. But and as everybody is aware that India is the biggest, largest manufacturing in vaccines. So I am sure, and as that ICMR letter is there, they have already volunteered some places that they should start trial and everything. And already people in the AIMS Delhi, AIMS Patna, they have volunteered themselves. Thousands of people already volunteered themselves for the vaccine trial. So I am sure the way they are doing, the way they are working, we will get it very soon. I am very hopeful that by end of this 2020, we will get vaccine.
All right. I want to understand again the question about cost, Dr. Babu, and about access to large populations like ours. I was reading the Lancet note on it, and it also spoke about the vaccine, primarily first going to healthcare workers, those on the front lines, etc., and the elderly. Do you think it will be a targeted approach as, we unroll the whole process?
Yeah, so let's look at the vaccines and their results as of now. The Oxford vaccine clearly explains that in healthy adults, there is a good immunogenicity, and probably in the older adults, it requires a booster dose. So therefore, we know what kind of vaccines are we looking at. Whereas the one where it's published from Wuhan, it shows that single dose is effective irrespective of the age group and gender. Once we start doing the large scale RCTs in India, we would know what kind of dose we are talking about and also the safety profile. After that's done, I am completely assured, if not anything, India can definitely have the cheapest vaccine. If Indian manufacturing firms, especially those in the vaccine front, if they can't give the kind of prices that we are looking at for poor people, I don't think any country in this world will be able to match the prices that the India can do. However, government will have to step in the resources, and I'm sure looking at
what
the
is
kind
the
of
price
commitment.
range?
I can't. I mean, I don't think any of us in the panel.
What is the price range, Dr. Babu?
No. That's what I'm saying. We'll not be able to predict any price. But if you see, looking at the rotavirus vaccine, it's around $1. But I can't say the same price will apply here. Depends on the kind of, there are a lot of things involved in that. And I'm not a person who can look at the cost as if now. I'm an epidemiologist, so I'll stay with that.
Okay, fair enough. Dr. Jha, I just do want to come to the pricing, and I know no one can give a price for something which is only in phase 2. Everyone is rushing towards it. But is it safe to assume that because there are so many participants rushing to make a vaccine, sooner or later there will be a supply glut of vaccines that work? I mean, the first off the block, of course, will have an advantage, but beyond a point, there will be a glut of coronavirus vaccines, which will ensure that they are available to a larger group of people at cost which is required.
So first of all, I would love it if we got to a problem of having a glut of vaccines at work. That would be a wonderful problem to have. In the middle of this pandemic, I think we can all look to such a moment with hope. I really do believe, from looking at policymakers, both in countries within India, America, elsewhere, but also globally, there is going to be a very strong push to make sure that people who are poor, who are who basically can't afford the vaccine, are not denied the vaccine because of their lack of ability to pay. And so the cost issue is really going to be about making sure the companies that have made major investments get their costs paid for. But I believe there is no doubt in my mind that governments across the world will make sizable investments to make sure that especially the poor, but really everybody in the world, gets the vaccine without having to pay out of pocket, because the societal benefit of everybody getting this vaccine is so massive, assuming, again, that we have a safe and effective one, it will be so massive that whatever the underlying costs, I can't envision, and it would be outrageous to have a situation where, for instance, the poor of India couldn't get the vaccine because they couldn't afford it.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure, hopeful, and sure that a situation like this would not be allowed to emerge at all. Well, on that note, I want to thank all of you for joining us on the first big story this evening on the show. Is there a silver lining in these dark clouds? Well, let's just hope so. It could be the best news we've heard in quite a few weeks.